Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be with you during this sunny day. The title of my keynote speech, as agreed with the host of the conference of the Congress, is "Whether the world economy, whether Europe, a clash of civilizations or global melting pot." That is actually the great challenge, issue, problem I'm addressing in my recent book, which just has been mentioned. I'm from Poland. I'm from great country of Poland in the heart of the European matter, which is not that important from the viewpoint of our contribution to the world economy or to the world population. Polish nation of about 38 million people. We do travel all over the world too, many of us in very many countries, maybe not in a proportion as many as in case of the island, but still. So a nation of 38 million makes just 0.55% of the total population of the world, and this year will be 7 billion people around. Our contribution to the world output is just 0.97. We are fighting to make it more than 1%, which will come in reality any year soon. But I think that our contribution to the world culture, politics, and to the process of change, to the very important process of change, is much more than just 0.5% or 1%. Why it is so? Why Poland is seen all over the world? I do travel in the world. I really explored almost 150 countries, and I know what the questions people are asking. Pretty often, some kids in a school in sub-Saharan Africa, I will not be aware where a country like Poland is. When I'm saying, well, this is in the very central part of Europe, then they do know where it may be, because at least they know where Europe is. And I think that Poland is seen and is given an example to other nations as a country of emerging market, emerging civic society, and emerging political democracy in a rather successful way. Today, when I was jogging in the morning at the Brandenburg Gate, an American speaking in English but not in English accent was asking somebody where the wall was. I stopped and I showed him where the wall was to the left and to the right of the Brandenburg Gate, because I do remember, and I was seeing the wall from both the sides of it. But I'm pretty often saying also in some of my books that we, the Poles, we did turn down the wall. That was 22 years ago when we were sitting around the table. We call it round the table. And that was the famous historical process of getting to kind of political consensus how to change the things for better for our people. And as it did happen, therefore, for most of the people of our part of the world, East Central Europe and the former Soviet Union. And now, 22 years later, I'm asked actually daily, is there a similarity between the ongoing process of uprising, revolt, turbulence, revolution, change, you name it, in the Mediterranean and the Gulf Belt, that is the North African and Middle East countries, and what did happen in my part of the world, especially because of the Polish wisdom, brave attempt, determination, and if there is a similarity, what lessons may be learned from the other part of the world, first Arab countries and Iran, and later on, I do not have any doubt about that, also many sub-Saharan countries and certain Central Asian countries on their way towards full-fledged market economy, civic society, and political democracy. And of course, they are the lessons to be learned. I've written a couple of essays answering these questions, which can be read on my facebook.com/Kolodko. You're welcome to join the debate over there. So therefore, the brand of Poland is, as a nation, which is neither the high-tech, nor the fastest growing economy in the world, nor a very populous country, not a negative one, a troublemaker, but rather a successful story with what's accomplished during one generation. One generation is a long period of time. One generation, this is the whole lifetime of my students. It's more than the whole life of my daughters. But from the historical perspective, this is just a blink of eye. What is 20 plus years against the process of development, the successes and failures we have witnessed in the course of change of civilization. But this is the very specific period of time we are living through. I'm warning the social scientists, the intellectuals, the political leaders, and the public at large. Do not commit a mistake of extrapolation. It used to be like that, it is like that, so it will continue like that. No, this is the time of turbulence. This is the time of cascade changes. As I explain in my book, the things happen the way they do because many things happen at the same time. Yes, basically I'm an economist. This is the beautiful science which are placed somewhere between one queen, which is the tough mathematics, and another queen of the sciences, which is the soft philosophy, answering the questions how the economic activity of the people, of the nations, of the businesses, of the regions, of the countries, of the world evolve. But what is happening in the economy, why one country is more successful, say, over the last 25 years or 30, China, unlike Russia, or South Korea, unlike Ghana, or Botswana, pretty much, but neighboring Zambia or Zimbabwe, not at all. Why Poland is much, much more successful than neighboring Ukraine. Why Chile is doing better than Argentina, or Dominicana much better than neighboring Haiti, and why Costa Rica is a successful story, what can be not said about neighboring Nicaragua. Same geopolitical position. Well, somehow the same, because definitely this is not the same in the case of post-Soviet Ukraine and Poland. We are already on this side. Ukraine is still having a kind of crisis of identity, which way to go, more towards west or more towards east. But the things happen also on the economic field in a way that certain processes are overlapping each other. The things happen the way they do because many things happen at the same time. So one has to be able to take a look into the technological aspects of process of growth and development, the social content, the cultural ingredient, and unfortunately the economies, they have the temptation, they have the inclination to neglect the soft factors of development because they are not measurable. We like to measure. So we can answer the question, what is like the rate of inflation, or what is the interest rate, or what is the exchange rate? But what is the link between the culture, between the values, between democracy, between social society, a cornerstone, and the process of economic expansion? That is a little bit difficult to answer. Yet there are the countries which try to do. Not only the big and rich countries like, say, France recently, or some Scandinavian countries very much devoted to the model of social market economy and social democracy. I visited recently the Kingdom of Bhutan, when once upon a time, answering the question of the journalists from Financial Times, why they are not giving enough attention to growth of GNI, gross national income, the wise king answered, because there is something more important than GNI. What is it? Asked the journalist of Financial Times. And he got an answer. This is GNH, gross national happiness. And in these rather poor countries, placed somewhere between Tibet in China and India, they are aiming for maximization of gross national happiness, unlike we do in North America or in Europe or elsewhere. So I'm answering the question in the book, how the world evolves, where we are facing, what is the future of the world economy, but from the bolder perspective. What is the future of the world culture, polity? What is the future for democracy and non-democratic regimes? What is avoidable and what is not? The longest chapter about uncertain future, 100 pages, is talking about 12 great issues of future with capital letters, GIFs, some of them only of an economic nature. So we did the word economy. Definitely, there is the irreversible process of globalization. What's globalization? Globalization has many faces, and if one means by globalization the global capitalist system, so one may be in favor or one may be against, depends on one's values, etc. But I'm defining globalization from an economic perspective as a historical and spontaneous, if not chaotic, process of first liberalization, which is followed by integration of thus far separately national performing economies, in liberalization and integration of the markets for goods and tradable services, but also for capital and for financial capital, which is very important, especially since a generation or so, but also knowledge, know-how, and labor with an extent and some time lag into one interdependent worldwide, global, planetary economy. What's happening here depends on what's happening over there and must make some consequences what's going elsewhere. Well, what's happening here? We have the problem in Europe with getting rid of too big a fiscal deficit in certain countries, which is somehow linked to the competitiveness of euro as a reserve global currency, and therefore it of course is making an impact on the cross exchange rate between euro and dollar, which now is again approaching 1.4, and that has a tremendous consequences for everybody all over the world. Are they aware of the fact, or they are not aware, which is much more the case because of this interdependence typical for the global economy. What's going now as far as, say, growth of labor productivity and capital efficiency in India is concerned has the consequences for the efficiency or lack of such in counteracting unemployment in countries like Germany or Italy, because we now compete in this interdependent world. And I'm proving that globalization is good for us, per saldo, because there are the bad and the good sides. There are the merits and the backwardnesses. So there's not just a one-side exercise. But if you want to have the chances, the gains from new additional chances which globalization is bringing, according to this definition, one must expose himself or herself. One must open for also new risk. So therefore, this is the fine art, the matter of fine art of management of macroeconomic policy or microeconomic business management within the new environment where we will be able, which enables us to maximize the gains from new additional chances which are brought together with globalization, and at the same time the ability to minimize the costs of risk which is indispensable. One may say, yeah, therefore globalization is a kind of game. It's a game for educated people, for intelligent people, for committed people, and first of all, for people with the ability to have a long run. One has to see beyond the horizon line. One has to see beyond next year's budget. One has to see, if one is involved in politics, beyond next parliamentary or presidential election. Otherwise, there's plenty of mistakes. And from that, there is the title which has been given by the American publisher to the book, Columbia University Press, Truth, Errors and Lies, Politics and Economics in the Volatile World. Where from? Why truth, errors and lies? When I listen to very many educated people which supposed to know how the things work, and I hear that somebody is not correct, somebody is definitely wrong, saying over and over that 2 times 2 makes 5. So my question is, why he or she claims so? Is he mistaken? Does he commit error? Or is he simply lying? And if one is mistaken, we can discuss, we can find the common ground. Okay, take a look into other data you haven't seen before. You have to read this book because you don't know that theoretical approach, and that will help you to explain the nature of the process. This is the logic flow in your train of thought. Okay, I can then therefore also change my mind if I'm wrong and I'm convinced in an intelligent way that the things work, evolve in a different way. But pretty often, the people which are active in the public life, not only the politicians, but first of all the politicians and the policymakers, but also the journalists, the media people, unfortunately also the people of academia. I wouldn't say scholars, because scholar is committed to truth and only to the truth. There is no, unfortunately, a mistake, an error can happen even at the best university. Is it Humboldt in Berlin, or Harvard over there, or Lomonosov or Shanghai University? But there is no room for lying in the science. Science is about the truth. Lie happens in politics being an instrument of convincing the people to go into the wrong direction. We just heard during the previous speech from distinguished ambassador of the great small country of Ireland, there is no way to create an image if it is not supported by the fact. Of course, there is a way to create an image without any support of the facts. It's only the way to manipulate the public opinion. This is the great industry of marketing, etc., etc. And I think that here a couple of people can tell us much better than two of us, a diplomat or the professor, how to do it. So therefore, there is a lot of lies as far as globalization, economic development, the causes of crisis, the ways out of crisis, the threats for the future are concerned. And one must be very careful when one wants to understand what's going on with the world economy, with the Europe, enabling himself or herself to distinguish between what is wrong and what is not correct, and if something is not correct, what is a lie and what is simply an error. So going back to the answer to the question, with the world, I think that the globalization will continue and must continue, but now the question is how to rationalize the globalization, because it's not rational. This is the paradox of historical development. We've come in an indispensable way to overall independent planetary economy. We have the biggest problem now ever because we do have many global problems: warming the climate, environment, terrorism, but on the economic side, free flow of capital, getting out of control labor. You want to know migration, you want to know what is the next big problem we'll face in the forthcoming quarters and years. The biggest challenge, that will be the mass migration of millions of people which will be getting out of control. This is just the spring. You will see how it will evolve. It will get out of control. Hundreds of thousands, millions of people will do everything what possible to leave South Asia, North and Sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean and Latin America, and the rich part of the world is completely not up to the challenge, and that will be very costly and very difficult process to bring it under control in a peaceful and democratic way, because the superior value of the West, at least it is declared, if you listen what they think about Libya, or what they are now telling about even Saudi Arabia or Egypt, everything is concerned about democracy. Interesting, very, very much. Where they were half a year or a year ago? I haven't heard anything, I haven't read it in the Wall Street Journal or some, with due respect, the international papers that much concern about the human rights and democratic freedom in all of these countries. So one must be very careful, but getting out of control migration will cause a very big problem, because the world of the future is multicultural. I'm a great fan of multiculturalism, and I'm very keen to listen and to get the message if one is branding his or her country in this or that way. I'm very keen to know the different cultures. I have a great deal of tolerance. This is how I'm bringing up my daughters and teaching my students: be multicultural, be tolerant, because this is our world, and we have to exchange. We have to exchange not only the goods which are being produced there and consumed here, but also the ideas, the values, and this world of the future will be much more complex than before. And for that reason, I don't like when Chancellor Merkel in this great country, in this great city of Berlin, says that multiculturalism is not up to the time, it's not working in Germany. I'm not happy when I have to listen from the Prime Minister of the new government in Great Britain that multiculturalism is not meeting the expectations in UK, and I hope that never ever anybody will dare say so in my country, where we have to learn much more from the Germans and from the British and from the Americans how the melting pot is supposed to perform. Because I think that the only chance for the humanity, for the mankind, will be 9 billion in 2045. Just think about for a while about that. I do remember the year 1960 when I was in kindergarten, when they declared the United Nations system that there are 3 billion people. And I will be around, the day after tomorrow, when it will be 2045, maybe running at that time marathon in Berlin, when we'll be 9 billion. So just during one lifetime span, the number of people is tripled from 3 billion to 9 billion. And these people are on the move in this volatile world of contradictory politics and economics. But it must be the melting pot. I do not share the viewpoint being proposed by some social scientists, some philosophers, or even policy makers that we are entering, or we have entered already, the clash of civilizations. There will be the fight, and maybe even a bloody one. It may happen. One must be very careful because the risk is around the corner. I just mentioned one risk which is coming, uncontrolled mass migration on the global scale. Yeah, I had foreseen this forthcoming, and now also already the reality, global and financial and economic crisis. One must be very careful because the things happen the way they do, because many things happen at the same time. Let me tell you that when I was 4 times Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister of Poland. When I was Deputy Prime Minister, I had top secret, very small inner circle, just 4 or 5 of us, the trusted expert, and never ever, even Prime Minister and President didn't know what we were talking about, and forget about media. We were talking how our country, Poland, can be brought to the crisis, how we can brought to our knees. And we draw the scenario, what must happen at the same time, at our same political and economic and cultural and financial space, to bring a severe crisis. Why? For the reason to act intelligently, to avoid such a scenario, which was not indispensable a priori. It could happen. And it didn't happen because we managed a proper economic policy. And the proper economic policy, is it the great country of Republic of South Africa, or is it Turkey, is it United States or UK, China or Russia, calls for 2 criteria at the same time. First, the aims must be defined in a proper way. We have to know where we are aiming. And pretty often, especially when it is based on the neoliberal, ill-advised economic thinking, there is the confusion of the ends with the means of the economic policy. Low inflation or balanced budget, I'm telling you, being 4 times rather successful finance minister, it's not a target of economic policy. These are the means to the economic policy, which is the sustained development, equitable growth, and so on. And the second criterion for successful policy is that it must be based on an adequate, proper economic theory, which I propose in the book calling it New Pragmatism. If it is based on ill-advised Washington consensus, as it was during shock without therapy in Poland at the beginning of the 90s, or on neoliberalism as it was from Reagan times to the, unfortunately, Bush the son, George W. Bush son, and including Clinton administration, yet they were trying to turn the course of developments. They failed, same as Tony Blair was not able to overcome Thatcherism in the UK. Then we have the result, which was avoidable some time ago, but later it was already too late. So therefore, that is where the world is aiming. Whether Europe, well, Europe is a successful story. How come? We have the crisis. We don't know what to do. The Greece has a very big fiscal crisis, hardly manageable without default or at least restructuring of the public debt. What's been accomplished thus far is remarkable, but it's far too short to deliver. We have the great small country of Ireland, which has very big problems. Even today, when I was getting ready to leave the hotel, the BBC was talking about 5.99 interest rate on the Portuguese government bonds, warning the market that maybe Portugal is next. We have deep crisis, unfortunately, in my country, in Poland, where the fiscal deficit is between 7-8%, yet it's supposed to be less than 3%, and there is the tough political fight now how to adjust, how to manage this fiscal deficit. There is the big problem in Germany, not as big as in France, not as big in France as it is in the UK, but one may say Europe is in crisis. I answering during my speeches, my lectures, my visits here and there, is Euro to succeed or is Euro doomed to fail? No. In the book, there is the letter to the granddaughter of my granddaughter. I'm too young fellow, so I don't have yet a granddaughter, but I have sent the letter to granddaughter of my granddaughter, and she does read this letter in 100 years from now. And the last sentence, postscriptum, is that I'm attaching to the letter 1,000 euro to enable her to buy some fashion marked clothes. and so on and so on. So I really do trust that in 100 years' time, euro will be another world reserve currency, maybe even stronger or at par with dollar. But of course, there will be another world currency, which will be yuan. Don't expect it to happen in this decade. But by the end of the 20s or in the 30s, yes, it will happen that yuan will enter the global scene as another exchange reserve currency. That means the death of dollar? No, that is the wrong conclusion. There will be the cohabitation of a couple of currencies, as it is now. Now we have 8 trillion of US dollars in value terms of foreign reserves, of which close to 3 trillion is Greater China, and 63% is in dollars, 27% and growing is in euro, and 10 remaining percent is Swiss franc, British pound, and Japanese yen. So you can see the future, which will be a little bit more diversified than the contemporary scene of the international reserves, and that will be, of course, the result of growing China. But why I'm saying that Europe is a success? Okay, go just 20 years, and the wall was here. Go 60 more years back, the millions of people were killing each other on this continent, and whatever conflict we have recently, all the time in Congo, or now in some Arab countries, or Iraq, or whatever, this is actually a tragedy, but it is next to nothing after the experience of this great continent, the beginning of the contemporary civilization. And now we have European Union of 27 countries. You want to see European Union in 20 years, well, that will be 40 countries, because countries as poor as on the one hand Montenegro or Albania will join, and the countries as rich as on the other hand Norway or Iceland will join too. Switzerland will not join European Union. They don't need to. They will be there because everybody needs, kind of offshore. UK will not join euro currency because that's not good for city, and very many people, not everybody, but some people, they do so badly, city in London, that they will protect the British pounds and the city as a kind of national industry. But Europe is a successful story to come to the conclusion that it gives an example to the other regions of the world how to tackle the regional problems, the local problems at the era of globalization. Regional integration is a positive answer for this unbalanced new chances and new risk, which is indispensably brought by ongoing irreversible globalization. And for that reason, I'm taking the opportunity of this conference here in the great historical city of Berlin, and I'm coming with the proposition which I call the Warsaw Initiative. In the second half of this year, in the fall semester, Poland, first time ever, will have the presidency of the European Union of 27 nations. We have benefit of joining the European Union as a successful country with management of economic policy, transition to market, democracy, and civil society. We've benefited a lot, and we contributed a little bit. And now, majority of people are enjoying that we are the member of the European Union, being aware that the gain has certain price tag attached. And I think that the same must be said in the case of Estonia and Lithuania, Slovakia and Slovenia, Romania and Bulgaria. So we may show to the remaining part of the world how to take the regional integration process to one's advantage from the viewpoint of fueling the process of raising labor productivity, capital efficiency, technology, quality of human capital, through openness and integration with the other parts of the world, but best first with our part of the world we are from. So therefore, the Warsaw Initiative during Polish presidency in the European Union should promote the European model of integration for other regions of the world. Is it Mercosur in South Africa or NAFTA in North America? Is it CARICOM in the Caribbean region or Association of Southeast Asian Nations in Southeast Asia? This is the post-Soviet CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States of SADC, Southern African Development Council. This is the Gulf Council or South Asia Association of Regional Cooperation. Is it ECOWAS? To some extent successful. They have longer time, a part of them, a common currency, CEFA, than we do have in in Europe, for the time being, only to 17 countries, or this is Economic Council of 5 nations, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi in East Africa. So European Union, European process of integration and transforming at the era of globalization, where it works also from the part of the East European countries like Poland as an instrument for catching up, because we are growing due to this integration much faster than the richer part of the world. It's a kind of pattern. It's a kind of positive experiment. It's a kind of example from which the other nations and regions may learn. And that is the Warsaw Initiative, that during this turmoil, this world of crisis, this world of interdependence, this world of cultural shift and a debate, is it going to be the clash of civilization of the global melting pot, we may contribute a technical assistance, a know-how, a knowledge to the nations all over the world, how to take advantage of the regional integration as an instrument to upgrading a culture, economy, polity, how to catch up all over the world for the better of all the mankind, of all the 7 billion people which we do have around. More, read the book and be sure not to hesitate to join us in the debate from facebook.com/Kolodko. Thank you very much. I don't know how much time we have left. I'm ready to answer any question, depending how much time we have. Otherwise, there is the blog, volatileword.net. Volatileword.net, where the never-ending debate continues. We can discuss there, but here I'm at your disposal.
We're under a lot of time pressure, but I do want to make sure we get at least, let's say, 2 questions. So I'd suggest maybe 2 brief questions and then 1 response.
Questions always are brief, but the answers are long.
Okay, we'll try to keep it brief just because our next speakers are waiting, and I know they're also under some time pressure. But are there 2 brief questions or comments? Looks like in the front and then to the side.
My name is Sohinan Abunsichitrie, and I'm the Executive Secretary of the Hamburg-based African-German Youth Arts, Culture and Science Association. The person who recommended me to listen to Dr. Kolodko happens to be an elder sister of mine, and she said he's a walking encyclopedia. I've seen him to be a breathing and living encyclopedia. And I wouldn't just say knowledge, he's got wisdom. Now my question comes. There is this view, I mean, we've heard in the earlier presentations the importance of soft skills, etc. You've touched on geopolitics today. What are your gut feelings, your scientific convictions with regard to how Europe and the old world would face a multipolar world?
We have to accept...
Could we take 1 question and 1 response?
Okay.
Just in the name of time, sorry. But 1 more voice, and then I'll give it back.
Good afternoon, Professor. My name is Ivan Kovac, and I'm a PhD student from Slovakia. I would like to ask you, you say during your presentation or in your books or articles that more or less the neoliberal concept is failing, and that the economic crisis is a result, let's say, of a failed neoliberal policies or the neoliberal economy, and you promote the concept of new pragmatism. My question would be, how would you define very briefly this concept, or what would be the pillars of this concept? And moreover, I would like to ask you on a special term that you used, that we are now in a post-GDP economy. How do you mean this, or how would you define this, let's say, new economic environment, post-GDP? What do you mean by this concept? Thank you very much.
You see, he knows a lot because he has read already a couple of my books. That is where the question is coming from, but thank you for this question, especially since I haven't mentioned today anything about post-GDP economics. Yes, my point is that part of the wrong reasoning, and of course on the wrong reasoning, wrong, mistaken, sometimes harmful action is coming from the fact that we are in what I refer to post-GDP economy. And post-GDP economy calls for post-GDP economics. So the question is, where is it? I may say, well, there is a little bit in neo-institutional economics or in certain authors which are eclectic and interdisciplinary with our ears. I'm trying to be pointing to non-material factors of development. I mentioned today only this concept of gross national happiness of the Kingdom of Bhutan, which is a striking example because it is not coming from developed Denmark or sophisticated UK or not from Germany based on ordoliberalism. It is coming from a poor country with wise king, as that may also happen. You know, the difference between, say, the king of Bhutan and the king of Saudi Arabia is the greatest imaginable ever. But the things happen. So this post-GDP economics simply takes into concern the values which people enjoy, which are not related to the quantity of output as measured traditionally in material sense by GDP. Just to give you a very simple example, GDP per capita in US is hovering around $48,000. In Western Europe, on average, it is about $36,000. So we teach our students that the Americans are more productive and more efficient. True? Wrong. Americans work almost 1,900 hours per year. And for instance, the Italians, they work only 1,400 hours per year. So GDP is completely overseeing the matter of leisure time. It's a question how long we work to make this GDP of whatever thousand per capita it is. This is the matter of culture. This is the matter of environment. This is the matter also of self-governing, everything what people do value. And there is a little bit of talking about that. President Sarkozy has called a commission to propose, chaired by 2 Nobel Prize winners. We met at the end. There was a celebration at the Sorbonne Grand Auditorium, but then the financial crisis hit, and Sarkozy has forgotten also to take care about the follow-up, how to measure the economic performance and social development. That was the question. And I'm coming with the proposition in my book, something what I referred to as integrated index of well-being or integrated index of success, which only in 0.4 is determined by GDP and remaining 0.6 depends on culture, environment, working time, leisure time, self-assessment of satisfaction from democracy, etc., which is very difficult to move from a concept to the operation, but that is the long way. And I think that we must encourage intellectual effort and also change of political debate towards this end. Now, to put it in the nutshell, how you act depends how you measure. As long as we measure, first of all, what is GDP per capita, or what is the inflation, or what is, say, high-tech share in the overall output, we focus on what we measure. And nobody takes care about the fact how long we are working. And I'm not sure that we are so much happier in Poland now that our GDP per capita on purchasing power parity is only $18,000. Maybe we would prefer to have $16,000, but to leave this lovely bloody office at 5 p.m., not at 7 p.m. But nobody asks, because there is the drive to have more money to catch up with America. And America would like to catch up, with Luxembourg, where there's 80,000. And of course, America would like, the Main Street would like to catch with Wall Street, because as we know, money never sleeps, etc., and so on. So this is the case. Now, as for neoliberalism, or if you prefer, we do understand the concept of neoliberalism in Europe. When I'm teaching in the US, I must always set or make a footnote. Neoliberalism or contemporary laissez-faire, because liberalism is not, neoliberalism doesn't ring a negative bell in the United States. And I'm making a big distinction, clear distinction between liberalism and neoliberalism. I put myself on the liberal side of the spectrum. Freedom, private property, democracy, competition, etc. These are the great liberal ideas we must attempt to build ourselves, our life, our countries, our businesses, and our civilization into the future. But neoliberalism is a very sophisticated ideology and politics, which is taking these great ideas of liberalism on as a means, as the instrument to raise the wealth of the elites, of the few at the cost of many. It can be seen from the last 25, 30 years, especially from US and from elsewhere. And of course, there is no doubt about that the grounding force, driving force, ground basis behind the recent crisis of the global capitalism, global market economy, from that perspective, is neoliberalism. So what's next? I'm saying new pragmatism, and new pragmatism is very much looking for an optimum balance between the power of invisible hand of market, which is the idea of neoliberalism, and the power of visible mind of the government, which is public enemy number one for neoliberalism, which is normal thing for neo-Keynesian economies, and which is also very risky. Because, for instance, Mr. Mugabe may say, Professor Kolodko said that they have to see the visible power of the government. This is me. No, I don't mean, that kind of intervention. I mean intelligent intervention. And when we take a look into some successful stories recently, this is definitely the mixture, the synergy of power of market and power of government, of wise policy. Where from it's supposed to come, it's another question which I'm attempting and I'm answering in the book. And if you go to my country, or said you're from Slovakia, I can point to certain periods of time when this synergy was managed much better and not at all or in extremely lousy way. Definitely, the shock without therapy at the beginning of the 90s was not the period when there was the proper coordination of the two. And now, I'm not naive. When I'm talking about global economy with the interdependence, I said, the biggest challenge is that as the result of growing in global interdependence, we have the global problems, but we don't have the subject to attack these problems because we don't have the global government. Should we aim for creating of the global government? That would be another utopia. But we must find in the years to come, till the end of the century and beyond, a proper political mechanism of coordination of the policies in the global space. G20 is a step into this direction. Well, better than nothing, but at least this is a kind of making more efficient global governance, how to govern the global economy without the global government, by proper coordination and reinstitutionalization of the word economy, upon which I have written a lot. And your question was? About well, that is what must be accepted, that we are now in the multi-polar world, and I don't think ever, but definitely not in generations to come, it's irreversible. I'm discussing with Mr. Brzezinski in the book because he published a book called Second Chance. And he wrote in the book prior to the last presidential election that if Americans will be smart and they will pick up a proper man or woman that happen to be the man for the president, they will be the second chance that the US will be the hegemon of the world. I wrote, no, you are wrong. You lost this chance in the 90s and in the last decade. Because the leader of the world can be only a big, large country, as US, if they are taking care of the world. The Americans were taking care of American business. And they are taking care of American business even now when they are teaching and preaching what democracy is supposed to be like in the Arab countries. They didn't do so when it should be done also in the free world, etc. There is a great deal of hypocrisy in this public life. We must be very much aware and very much listen to who is wrong and who is lying when they are not correct. So we are bound for multipolar world where for the time being, number one, will remain United States. It is all the time the highest technology. Why US matter? It is 4.7% of population of the world. This is 20% of the global output, which is a lot. Well, but European Union is already half percentage more than US, and it will be so in the future. But this is 40% of the global finance. And this is, as far as military power is concerned, this is even much more than that. And as the military built up spending, nobody is too much United States, etc. So US, Swiss, and don't give break to the United States. This is the one huge pillar of the world of the future. The other one is the European Union, which will succeed
There will be more countries in the European Union. There will be ongoing harmonization of the fiscal policy. There will be the more people and nations, countries joining the euro, and so on, so on. This is a successful story, and it will be even a greater successful story in the future. And then it's China, and then it's India, and then I wouldn't put on the side Russia. Russia is also a power of the future for a number of reasons. The first reason is still underground, not above the ground. These are vast resources which will be most scarce and more pricey, expensive in the future, and I think that everybody understands it. And even if yesterday Vice President Biden was teaching and preaching in Russia what democracy and fighting corruption is, it's very interesting how they know how Libya and visit of Biden in Russia is shown on Russia RT, Global English Language Television, how it is shown on BBC, and how it is shown on Al Jazeera. 3 global networks, 3 different worlds you are living in. Who is right, who is wrong? You know, almost everybody is, if not lying, somehow manipulating public opinion. You have to have the ability to come to your own conclusion, which is not that easy, but it is much easier after you read the book. And then you have the regional groupings. I think that, for instance, say Mercosur with the lead of Brazil, which is already a country of more than 200 million people, and it's already a successful story because policy of Lula da Silva was maybe not very much based on my new pragmatism, but definitely that was not following the suit of Washington consensus and neoliberalism. That was the smart policy of taking advantage of the power of market, but with the visible mind of the government. And if you want a current example where it's emerging market together with emerging democracy, I would point to Brazil as far as a big country is concerned, or to Slovakia if you wish, or Slovenia from our part of the world when we are talking about small so-called emerging markets. So therefore the world of the future is the multipolar world. Last point is it better or worse? It's debatable. I'm very much aware. But my assumption and my suggestions and my train of thought is that is better for the world than the world of two, like say the West led by US and the East led by the Soviet Union, or the world just with one superpower like in the 90s, the United States, which actually, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, dismantling of Iron Curtain, before China has emerged as an economic power, were really the muscle to run the world show. But they were running the show in a way that brought them to the crisis, and a big part of the world because of interdependence of the global economy, including the finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Professor Kolodko, thank you.